Whovians across the Whoniverse, and welcome to another episode of Who Corner to Corner with me, your host with the most, Paul, and my good chum over there, or over there, one or the other, depending on how he edits it. It's Geoff. Hi, Geoff. How are you?
I'm all right. Am I not a host with the most?
No, you're the host with the least. I don't know why that is. It's just the rules I invented. I haven't fully worked them out yet, but them's the rules, mate, and we have to abide. It's the law. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? Anyways, let's
I'll run a poll
keep
on Twitter. Who's the host with the most?
Yeah, the host with the most. Who is the host with the most, and who is the host with the least? But you need something that rhymes with least. The beast with the least, the host with the most, and actually that makes you a beast. I think that's probably cooler than a host.
Yeah, this is getting worse by the moment.
Yeah,
really.
Should we just crack on?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so today's very special episode is the result of a poll which you, my good friend Geoff, cast on Twitter or X lately, because with the imminent launch of the new collection box set, which is season 25, right from the middle of Sylvester McCoy's era, we thought, let's do something that taps into that because, reasons, and why not? So we put some stories out there, didn't we, for people to
all
vote
four from that set,
So what were the stories? We had Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yeah,
we Happiness Patrol, and
Silver Nemesis,
and The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, i.e. all the stories from season 25. And which one won?
Remembrance of the Daleks.
Remembrance of the Daleks. And which one did we decide to do?
Silver Nemesis.
Yes! But you know what? Because we thought everyone does Remembrance of the Daleks, right? And we've talked about it before several times on and off.
Yeah, I'm just going to look up quickly while we're talking to see if I can
what
find
the actual results were.
Yeah.
But anyway, while you're doing that then, so we kind of thought, Remembrance of the Daleks has been done to the death, and no doubt we will look at it in some detail at some point. But in the meantime, why not actually do a story that is perhaps a little less popular? So we kind of plunked for Silver Nemesis, which is kind of apt in a way because it is actually the official 25th anniversary story of Doctor Who, right?
Yeah, it is. I was just checking, sorry, because on the poll, someone had made a comment that we should ignore the winner and look at the one that was least loved, and I wanted to find out
who that was.
Check who that was, and thank you.
There you go. See, great minds, whoever that person is, great minds clearly think alike.
Here we go. Found it.
You got it. You found out who it is.
The Daleks got 40% of the vote. Happiness Patrol had 28. Had 20. Sorry.
20.
Silver Nemesis had 17.8, and Greatest Show in the Galaxy had 22.2. And it was James Horden who said, "You should, of course, do the story that comes last, so that you can give it love and build support for it." Yes. And also Mestal the Magnificent also said, "Got to be Silver Nemesis. Controversial stories always make for the best reviews."
Controversial? Is it? Is it a controversial story, Silver Nemesis?
I'm going to comment and say, what makes it controversial?
Well, maybe we can arrive at that by the end of this episode. Maybe we'll discover why it should be considered so controversial. I've perhaps got a little bit of an idea bubbling away at the back of my head now. Casting my mind back some 30... Oh, crikey. It's a long time ago. 25 years since then has come and gone. And another 10 years on top. So that's 35, 36 years now.
36.
Oh, my gosh. Nemesis. Oh my good lord! I'm feeling really, really old now.
Look, it was
1988.
Yeah, 23rd November 1988. Yeah.
So that is 36 years. Yeah, it is. Yeah, 36 years.
Wow. So I was only 9.
He was only 9 years old.
So if you've listened to us before, which chances are you have. I've mentioned this story before because I can remember watching this.
This is quite special to you, isn't it? This whole time in Doctor Who's history. Yeah,
this is when I was, trying to watch it each week and everything. So I remember this one. I remember the arrows and all of that, and the kind of medieval, setting with the castles and stuff like that. Even though it was kind of now, in the modern age as well. But funny enough, I haven't actually seen this one since then. And so,
really?
I have these memories of it.
Oh my goodness!
But the reason I hadn't seen it is because you could only get Silver Nemesis in a in a box set on the DVDs. It was not available on its own, and it was always really expensive. And I never got round to buying it. And then the collection sets came out, and I thought, I'll stop. I'm not going to buy the DVDs anymore. So I'll just wait.
You ceased buying DVDs.
Yeah.
And just went straight into the Blu-ray collection box sets.
Yeah. So I had, a lot of DVDs, but I never got the one with this in. I can't remember what set it was in. Maybe some Cybermen.
I don't remember, actually. I must have it. I have got, so I'm looking at my DVDs now. I do have Silver Nemesis over there. I can't remember if it came in a box set. But of course, it did come in a VHS cover previously to the whole DVD explosion thing. So somewhere in the 90s, I can't quite remember when.
It came with Revenge of the Cybermen. Sorry.
There you go. There was an extended version of this available on VHS, which I've got up in the loft. And if I could have been bothered before this podcast to actually go up and dig it out, then I would have done. But I can't because it's very, very deep in amongst a whole treasure trove of stuff up there. And once I start down that road, my friend, there's no telling where it's going to stop. And at the end of the day, not only do I have to record this podcast today, I also had to do some work as well.
Yes.
Because, earning a living, etc. It's kind of got to be done. So yes, but there is that. And actually, that's quite a special DVD because VHS, because I car booted a lot of my VHSs. I had a lot of store in the DVDs. I wasn't going to sell any of those, and still won't. You have to claw them from my cold dead hands upon my burial to get. And actually, they're going to be buried with me, so you can't even do that.
Yeah, you could do
that. But the VHSs, I just got rid of them. I sold them on, apart from a few, and that one is one of the few that remain because I did not want to part with it. Not that it's my favourite story. Perhaps because really it's a kind of a collector's piece, I guess. That's the thing. It's probably worth at least £5.60 now. So it's it would have cost me 12, 14 quid in a day. Now it's worth about a fiver, I'm sure. But still, nonetheless, it's not going to move. But that's weird because I did the same thing with VHSs as you did with DVDs in the collection. So I continued with the DVDs, and I'd actually got pretty much all of them before the collections were available anyway. But I dispensed with VHS completely, probably because I didn't have a VHS player anymore. And, I was sort of pushing on with the next best thing, shiny discs and stuff. But yes. Anyway, so that is the thing. So as we said, this is quite a special story for you, Geoff, because you were 9 years old, and this is the kind of era when you started watching Doctor Who for the very first time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, and I vaguely remember seeing, Peter Davison playing cricket and bits of Tom Baker, but not much of Colin. But yeah, I remember watching, Sylvester.
Yeah,
and seeing that. So yeah, I hadn't seen this one since then. So it's a long time.
36 years ago. My goodness,
I really enjoyed it.
Did you? You liked it?
I did.
Yeah.
And there was probably an element of nostalgia to it. For remembering it and seeing it again. It's pretty action packed, isn't it? And explosive.
Do you know what? It's a lot more action packed than I remember.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Because I remember being quite bored for most of this when I first watched it. So I was quite surprised by how fast paced it actually was.
It's got quite a modern Who feel to it. Yeah, it does move along as well, and it also hops time periods as well, and really kind of
back
plays
with
that
yes,
quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
Which is something that doesn't often happen actually in the show. You go to a time period or planet or whatever, but there's very little actual jumping backwards and forwards within the same space of an episode. So
Indeed,
that was fun.
And it's quite good as well how the TARDIS manages to accurately land both in the right place in 1988 and in 1638, because this whole thing in the classic series with the fact that Doctor could never control the TARDIS very well seems to kind of vanish by the time you get to the Seventh Doctor's era. The Seventh Doctor is bang on the money. He knows exactly where he's pointing that machine, and it pretty much always seems to get there. So it's and it's an interesting take, I think, on how Doctor Who had kind of shifted in these few years, from when Andrew Cartmel took on the role of script editor and Sophie and Sylve came on as the Doctor and the companion, and for me, obviously I was a little bit older than you for this, so by the time this rolled around, I was a full platinum card carrying Doctor Who fan. I was well into it. I'd done cut my teeth on a Peter Davison years, and by the time Sylvester McCoy rolled around, I was in there, mate. I was proper Doctor Who fan. Cut me like a stick of rock, and it says Rassilon through it out my bone marrow. So, So it's interesting. We'll get through this as we crack on. So should we kind of talk through the story and kind of see where we're at? So as you said, there's a lot of to and fro in between two different time periods. We got what's her name, Lady Painfort in 1638, and her pal Richard, who's a kind of protector. They're both quite villainous. What do you think of their villainy? Were you convinced by their threat?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't quite get how she knew the Doctor's secrets, because there's quite a hefty amount of all of the, what would be the Cartmel master plan in this, isn't there? And hints at all of that. And if you'd like to find out more about that, you can check out our interview with Andrew Cartmel, which released recently.
Good plug. Nice. You may hear that references to this interview quite a few times through this podcast.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, I thought their villainy, they were... fairly kind of, they were good. There was nothing kind of, sort of amazing about them, perhaps. I'm not clamouring for Big Finish to do, a spin-off from them or anything.
The Secret
like
Adventures of Lady Painfort and her loyal mate Richard.
Yeah. But I liked the, transplanting them, to the present day, and there
was a bit of fun there, wasn't there?
Yeah, like they
Richard.
Pub, don't they?
Tea rooms, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And she throws a chair out the window and dives out, doesn't she?
Because that's the kind of action gal that she is.
How they all, exited the rooms.
I don't think, did they have windows back in the 17th century? They would have done, wouldn't they? They were probably filled with lead, because I'm not sure they could really get the big panes. But
yeah.
So you'd have thrown a chair at one of those panes, it would have bounced right back and hit you on the noggin. That's for sure. But still, it's fun.
That was quite amusing. And then,
imagine if Lady Painfort had turned up in 1969, actually, and found herself in an episode of Z-Cars, or in the 70s, and she found herself in an episode of Professionals or The Sweeney or something like that. She'd been properly cut out for it.
Absolutely, yeah. But they see they see the police cars, don't they? And he says, "What chariot is this?" It reminds me of there's an Angel episode where they have their minds reset, so Angel goes back to when he was a human lad, and so he was from like 300 years ago, and he runs out the hotel thing they're in fear, and he sees all the cars, and he thinks they're like silver demons or something. He doesn't know what they are, so it kind of reminded me of that. That's really
interesting.
And then later when they see those two ruffians who think they're
the Skins.
What's they called? Social workers.
What are you, social workers? This is a weird section in here, and this is something that goes through quite a few of these stories. It's almost like there's some... Do you know, like, I can't remember the dialogue. I was going to write it down, actually. I'll Google it or something. But the dialogue when the skinheads come onto them, right? So Lady Painfort and Richard are walking through the streets of Windsor, and they're getting a few glances from people. To be fair, I think, actually, they wouldn't attract too much attention, because you might be used to the kind of theatrics, perhaps, that goes on in the side streets of Windsor. I don't know whether that happens. But nonetheless, they attract the gaze of two uncouth skins, who were the sort of 1980s equivalent of hoodies right now, weren't they? Sort of roadmen hoodies, right? So now we got skinheads who decide they want to have a go at it. But the dialogue, the stuff they say, I mean, they're very erudite skinheads. I have to say, there's a little bit of, I don't know, some kind of metaphysical something in there in what they're saying. I should have blooming written it down, because
I just wrote
it's very
social
weird.
Workers.
Yeah, but there's a little bit before that, what they say, which is just kind of bizarre. And it reminds me of later on, the following year, in Curse of Fenric, when the Ace is coming onto one of the Russian soldiers, and they're clearly talking about something at the top, but there's a deeper level going on. And also there's the bit in Dragonfire where, again, the previously, where there's a confrontation outside an airlock, and the Doctor has a sort of very metaphysical conversation with one of the guards. You know what I mean? So there's a bit of that kind of running through. So on the surface, it's a very unlikely thing for a bunch of skinheads to say when they're going to mug somebody for money. But and it kind of sticks out to me like it's a very odd thing. It just sticks out like a big sore thumb with a massive bandage on it and a cocktail stick with a flag on it saying "Whoa!" or something, you know. That's how noticeable it is. But we move past it and the skins end up hanging from a tree by their ankles.
In their heart printed boxes. From
That's right.
Tree branch,
screw legs out. Who did this to you? Social workers.
Yeah.
But it's also quite good fun as well, because actually when the skinheads do accost Lady Painful and Richard turns on them, and we get the feeling that actually Richard is a much harder nut than both of these two guys put together, because he relishes it, doesn't he? He turns them on, you know, he turns on them rather, and sort of confronts them, faces them down with a little glint in his eye and a little smile, and you know it's not going to end well for these two kids, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't, when you see them later.
And not only that, he burns their clothes as well.
Yeah.
Like, flipping heck. That's a bit harsh. Anyways. So we've got Lady Painful, who's one of the bad guys, and we've also got a bunch of neo-Nazis, led by De Flores.
Shooting a parrot.
Shooting a parrot. What a bastard. That's how despicable these people are. Except they're not actually called neo-Nazis. I think, if memory serves, John Nathan Turner wasn't happy about them being called neo-Nazis in the script, so I think they were kind of changed to just paramilitaries, although that very first shot where the camera pans through his office, De Flores' office, and it's full of neo-Nazi regalia, basically. There's swastikas, there's iron eagles, there's a chess set, all kinds of
fairly
things.
Obvious.
Call them whatever you like, but when there's a whole bunch of swastikas hanging from the wall, we kind of know where these guys are coming from. And they do say, "Welcome to the Fourth Reich," okay? So it couldn't be much clearer than that. Okay, so we got Lady Painful and Richard. We got the paramilitaries, brackets, neo-Nazis, close brackets. And we've got the other big bad, which are...
Cybermen.
Yeah. What do you think of these guys, mate? You a fan of the Cybermen? I
mean, you know, I obviously remember them you know, quite vividly, really, and being hit by arrows. And, you know, there's an awful lot of... you know, pyrotechnics and shit going on with these guys.
There is, And, excuse me, if you can hear that, that is some kind of military plane or a cyber ship passing over my house.
Is it a cyber ship? Yeah.
Bloody hell, that's it's.
And that look they've got in this, to me, is kind of my, you know, most sort of fondly remembered Cyberman look. You know,
this is one that's imprinted upon your small
the
adolescent brain.
To me, there's a lot of them in it as well. You know, in terms of numbers, you know, and I have to say, I think the kind of overall plot to this one with, you know, the meteor, the Nemesis statue, bow and arrow, all of that was like, I had to read the TARDIS wiki thing afterwards.
To try and figure out what the hell was going on.
Because admittedly, I was working whilst watching it.
You were distracted by actual work then, were you?
But I was like, does that make sense? Yeah.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No,
but here's the thing.
It's not me then.
This is why I was going to ask you next. Actually, you kind of you know, sort of seen that. You glance at my notes, you bugger you. But we got three different bad guys all ganging up on the Doctor here. Is there room for all three of them in this tiny 3-part? Story,
really. I didn't realise it was a 3-part. I'd forgotten that. And when I was watching them, and then I thought, oh, there'll be one more after this if I got time for it. Oh no, it's finished. So, you just needed another 5 minutes for the plot to breathe properly, as they say.
I don't know who you're talking about. Anybody who says that, Geoff is not talking about you. He means other people, clearly.
Not
way to offend probably 3/4 of our listenership, mate. Nice. Just ignore him. Yeah.
No, I thought it was fine, really, with the three of them. And it was quite nice, really, actually, to have that kind of trio of antagonists going on, and it's quite suitable for a 25th anniversary to have quite multiple threats like that. Gave it a feel of that the Doctor's got his work cut out for him a bit here.
He's up against an army of forces, isn't he? There's 3 different distinct forces coming together now, all with the same ends. They want to control this. Well, we don't quite know what it is. I mean, it's nice how it's sort of released the whole statue, the whole Validium thing, and because we see clips of it careering through space.
Yes. Yeah.
Screaming down through the atmosphere, exploding, landing in the middle of Greenwich Gasworks or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of exposition in this as well. The part one, I was sort of looking, I thought, my goodness, like literally every scene that the Doctor and Ace are in, the Doctor's explaining something to do with the plot, what's kind of being set up, what it is, but he doesn't reveal everything. It's just enough to kind of make you think, oh, okay, well that's interesting, and then what is it? But it's also intercutting between the Lady Painfort stuff, the Cybermen. No, not the Cybermen. We don't see them until the end of part one, do they? So Lady Painfort and the neo-Nazi, paramilitaries, those guys, and they're all kind of congregating on Windsor, aren't they? They're all sort of coming together to gain control of this statue.
Yeah, they all want the statue, which is made of that the what do you call it, the Validium metal, yeah. And then there's something about that being created by Rassilon and Omega. And, yes. And Ace keeps saying to the Doctor, he says, "Oh, Rassilon did it." And she's like, "And?" He says, "And Omega, and she's trying to get more out of him because there was that whole thing of he was one of the founders of it, but he didn't give anything away.
No, he deflects it, saying, "And it caused a whole lot of pain for everybody concerned," or something
along those lines. Those lines. Should never be built or something. So unless I missed it, I never quite got why Lady Painfort knew the Doctor's secrets and stuff like that.
You might have missed it because there is a part in part 3 when everything kind of comes together. I mean, she's got a history with the statue, right? The statue or the metal has been in her care at some point, and she had it fashioned into a statue of herself, right? Holding a bow and an arrow. It's the 3 distinct pieces. So she obviously knows it. And presumably during that period, because it's an organic thing, it's a living metal, right? It would have spoken to her because it speaks, as we learn at the end of it. And I think she says towards the end of part 3 that the statue told her all the Doctor's secrets.
Okay, I didn't catch
so that. Was, I think that's where.
Right,
but
so
it is a blink and you miss it.
Yeah, that wasn't clear then.
I think the extended version on the VHS I've got, and I think it's on the DVD as well.
Probably,
so I'm pretty sure it'll be in the collection when that comes out. Which has got some kind of bits that were lost because it overran each part of this overran. So there's in the VHS at least there were 11 minutes or so of restored material.
Oh really?
So cut back into it, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, that's quite a lot, particularly for a TV show. Yeah,
well, exactly. For what is it in total? 65, 70 minutes.
Yeah, it's not long
if you run all 3 parts back to back. So it's not massive, really, is it?
So I must have missed that. Then it wasn't clear. But I quite liked that. She knew more. And then Ace asks the Doctor about it at the end, and he just says shush, doesn't he? He doesn't kind of.
He does.
Elaborate.
I remember watching this first time round, and obviously because I was older than you, that kind of hit with quite a kick up the arse. I'm not going to lie, but it was a good one, right? It's like yes. It was almost like in it's almost like that the whole. Fugitive of the Jadoon thing.
Yeah.
When there's a bit of misdirection, you kind of thrown in. We'd had a little bit of it in Remembrance of the Daleks. There's nothing at all really within the Happiness Patrol, but then of course it comes back in this. And that final sequence with the statue and Lady Painfort and Ace and the Doctor.
They're all there, aren't they, in that warehouse?
Yeah, and the Cybermen don't care about Time Lord secrets or anything like that. But I was like, no, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know. Because now suddenly it's like we don't know anything about the Doctor, almost like the timeless child thing. We're given something, but actually it doesn't answer any questions. But apart from make us question everything we think we already know. So and it's I've always said I love it when Doctor Who does this, and it's done it twice now in my lifetime. That's the first time, and then the second time is with the recent timeless children stuff.
I'd forgotten the finer details of this episode to the mists of time, and seeing all that stuff again and thinking, a bit like you, I want to know more, but actually I kind of like that you don't get the answers to it, and I think we've said on some of our recent episodes, particularly in relation to 73 yards, like for me, I think you have to give answers to things sometimes, but I'm also not a big fan of having to watch a behind the scenes thing or read an interview to kind of be given explanations to stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, like the woman in 73 yards and that, you know, ending and stuff, it didn't work for me. It wasn't giving me enough, and it was too vague for me to be able to go, oh well, this is what I think it is, or you know, whatever. But with the Doctor here, and not, you know, him not kind of explaining everything and keeping some things close to his chest, I thought, yeah, it's great. It creates that air of mystery, and again, it's not dissimilar at all to the Timeless Child stuff. And you know, people say, oh, you know, the critical will say 13 never opens up to Yaz and doesn't tell her, you know, anything about what she's found out about.
Neither does the Seventh Doctor to Ace.
No,
rarely.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that creates a lot of conflicts between them, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
she's
rather
clearly
than...
annoyed and wants to know more, and you know, and also you can see his slightly manipulative streak as well. When he gets her to go and blow up the cyber ship, you know, he sort of plays on the fact that she likes, you know, pyro and, you know, blowing stuff up, and gets her to go and do his dirty work for him. And, I maybe I read it wrong, but I kind of felt like afterwards she slightly questioned, you know, doing that, you know. And
no, you read it absolutely right, my friend. There's a lot of stuff in this, and it surprised me again watching it again. As I was watching this, I was getting New Adventures vibes, and obviously the New Adventures happens after this, right after the show is cancelled. But it's stories like Silver Nemesis that really set the template for what was followed through in those stories. And of course, they all concluded pretty much with Lung Barrow, which is the story that explains all the or unravels the Cartmel master plan as such, right? So it tells us who the other is, and you know, the whole history of the Time Lords, and invents a whole bunch of other stuff. And this is one of the reasons why I never got on with that story, because like you were saying there a moment ago, where explanations are given in a behind the scenes thing, or you know, by other media, it's kind of I felt it was kind of similar to that by having everything explained in a book, which was only kind of like a tie-in to the TV show without it being a TV show itself. You know, it went into a whole bunch of Gallifreyan origins, and as I said, this thing about the other, and explain the Doctor's relationship with him, and Rassilon and Omega, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I never bought it, and I wish I had now, because obviously it's worth loads of money. So, but I did read it. Well, I read most of it, and actually thought it was a bit turgid in the end, which is weird, because I usually like Mark Platt stuff, but not that one. But anyway, we digress. But yes, so there is a lot of stuff in here, I think, which kind of does play out over the New Adventures.
Sorry, I'd just like to say as well, like, it's quite, you know, the Doctor and Ace obviously have a really good friendship. You know, it starts with them at a jazz concert and stuff, doesn't it? And you know, he's made her another tape,
a little performance,
and, you know, stuff like that. And she goes and gets a cassette signed by the guy. But there's clearly a kind of, you know, he's not opening it up to her fully about things, and she doesn't know everything, and there's all that element of danger and stuff. And if you've read At Childhood's End, which Sophie Aldred wrote, you know, it does deal with a lot of this in there as well. You know, the story is present day 13 meeting Ace, and then flashbacks to 7 and Ace, and kind of you know, dealing with their fallout and their relationship and stuff like that. But of course, that was then sort of, you know, knocked to one side for the sake of Power of the Doctor, which then, you know, dealt with their, you know, that beautiful scene between the two of them.
They had closure between them, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Well, yeah, it was kind of knocked to one side to a bit, but it addressed the same sort of thing. You know, there's a massive history.
It's no less good just because...
No. There's clearly a massive history between the Doctor and Ace, because obviously we never saw their TV adventures finish, and there's a whole bunch of different endings for their relationship. You know, either Ace was being groomed to be a Time Lord, or she died in that one over there. Well, I can't see what it's called, so I ain't got my glasses on, I can't remember it now. You'll know which one I mean, graphic novel, and there's all sorts of other things. And there's a whole load of stuff that she did in the Virgin New Adventures, which either may or may not tie into any of the TV history at all. You know what I mean? So it's almost like Ace exists in many different universes, in many different forms. So she could quite happily have the adventure that she has in At Childhood's End. Likewise, she can also have the adventure that she had in Power of the Doctor.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of stuff.
There's a Big Finish.
Ground Zero. That was it. I knew it would come to me. The title of the graphic novel in which Ace dies. It's very sadly, very, very tragically, and it's terrible. So yes, this is another one, and probably the first one that kind of creates a bit of a rift between the Doctor and Ace. It's very small. It's very subtle. There's not much in it, but it's the beginnings of something which they then play out to greater effect in series 26, I think. And actually, the Greatest Show in the Galaxy probably follows it through as well, if I remember. It's another one I haven't seen for a while, but certainly by the time we get to Curse of Fenric and Ghostlight, the Doctor is incredibly manipulative. He's gone into a much, much darker place. And that reminds me as well, because there's something else which appears in this story, which is the chess game. Did you spot that?
Yes, yeah.
Quite a few of those.
Moving the pieces, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah.
So this presumably is the game, although we didn't know it at the time, a kind of reference to the eternal game of chess that the Seventh Doctor is playing with Fenric, right? That we see kind of climax in the Curse of Fenric. But there's a bit of that throughout a few Seventh Doctor stories, so it's good to kind of look out for them. Whether or not they knew it was building towards something back here, I don't know. We should have asked Andrew about it when we spoke to him, because there's a lot of stuff that these guys were putting in place. Don't forget, they're all working together, almost in like a writer's room, and just bouncing ideas off each other. So I love the creativity of this period of Doctor Who, and I've always thought that maybe Silver Nemesis is one of the weakest of these stories, because it wasn't one that I particularly enjoyed anytime I've watched it. But I think what actually happens at the end of it, this whole reset of the Doctor's origins, is very, very cool. And actually watching it again earlier today, I thought it's a lot better. It's so much better than I remember.
Yeah, you were saying that you didn't like it, and I was thinking, I wonder what this chat about it's going to be like. And then I started watching it. I was like, how can you not like this?
I know, right?
It's jumping in time periods, it's taking that, like I said earlier, the time travel aspect of the show. You've got shootouts galore in it. It's the Cybermen are here, and they're, big and menacing, and the Doctor and Ace are really good together. And there's some also, one of my notes, which is probably a Mike Tucker thing, fab miniature work as well.
Do you know what? Yes, absolutely.
Like the cyber ship, and then when it lands for real, and then there's some quite neat cuts.
Did you notice the masking as it goes behind the trees?
No, I didn't spot that actually, but
mate, I mean, that's awesome. This is back in 1988,
and that's
right?
Difficult doing masking
that
with stuff
would all have been
behind.
hand done, all the leaves and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the cyber ship passes behind a tree line, and also when it settles on the ground, we get little tufts of grass appearing before it, right? We don't get any shadows, which is sad, so it does lose a little bit of weight, but the fact we get little tufts of grass on the on the overlays is
all
quite
done,
something.
Pretty seamlessly, like when it cuts to the model of it blowing up, and it's gone from the the real shot with the model superimposed in and stuff, and then it blowing up, and then
we don't see much of it before it blows up on that model stage, do we? The filmed inserts of the explosion, so the pre-explosion, that's all in the CSO type stuff. But I think actually, saying that, okay, so again, putting this in context. Now, this season opened with Remembrance of the Daleks, which had some of the best model work ever, and I do remember kind of expecting that this would be similar, right? So you remember the Dalek spaceship is landing in the school playground, and that's obviously a real prop. They built that to size and load it in from a crane, and it looks amazing, and it still looks amazing right now today. 36 years later. The cyber ship, on the other hand, is clearly a very shiny model shot, lit with very strong lights, so the lighting doesn't quite match the daytime. So and it's clearly superimposed on the on the location video. And as I said, there's no shadow. It doesn't feel like there's any weight to it. So I think that would have disappointed me a little bit. I don't let these things get in the way.
No,
but I think also the plot is all over the place, and I think where it starts, and I do think this is still true actually, but it doesn't affect my enjoying it now. It starts off really strong, but flags a lot towards in the second half of part 2. Seems like there's an awful lot of running around, there's an awful lot of talking, and then not very much happening. Part 3 somehow goes into some weird comedy when Lady Painfort, who's getting increasingly losing her marbles, flags down Dolores Gray, Mrs. Remington, who's some Hollywood kind of actress. And remember, we spoke to Andrew about celebrity casting. So John Nathan Turner had this thing where he would just put famous names into these things, and Andrew knew some of them, didn't know most of them, and would have to kind of find some way of making it work. And obviously with the director as well. And quite often these people who shoehorned in there had no idea what they were doing, why they were there, or anything. And actually, to the same degree, Anton Diffring, who played the florist, the neo-Nazi guy, right, apparently had no clue, hated being there, was actually quite ill throughout the whole thing. So when you think of his character, right, it sort of works, but he's very vague, it comes across that he's not really giving it everything. He can't because he's ill or just doesn't give a toss.
He was much less interesting in comparison to Miss Painfort.
But yet could have been more interesting, perhaps, right? And then when you think about the Cybermen, right? So we'd had some decent cyber stories. We'd had Earthshock, which is brilliant, unequivocally so. With that, a bit of a run around into 5 Doctors. Then we had like Attack of the Cybermen with Colin. And this is the first time they're back since Attack of the Cybermen, I think. I'm doing a quick brain check now, but my brain doesn't work like it used to, so do correct me if I'm wrong. But I think they've, and again, I thought this at the time, and I probably still do now, they're not as solid as they were perhaps in Earthshock, right? They're kind of like a lot of them are decimated very quickly, right? So some of them get killed by Lady Painfort's gold-tipped arrows because they're allergic to gold. That's used throughout. The merest scratch of gold will finish them off completely, sort of. And then Ace takes out the rest of them on that battle on the catwalk, right? So they're just kind of falling down and blowing up and all sorts. And now that's a great scene in itself, right? But clearly the Cybermen are there just to be targets, just to provide a bit of the pyrotechnics and everything else.
They kind of usually are anyway, aren't they?
That's the thing. They are a lot, but they're better, I think, when there's a bit more to them. In the 10th Planet, when we first see the Cybermen, there's that whole discussion about their morality and their ethics. They're not just soldiers, they're not just cannon fodder, right? They're there for reasons, and the reasons they're in that base is because of something that is really deep to them. They're trying to save their race. The whole cyber race has gone through a weird evolutionary kind of avenue where it's just a terminal direction. And they're trapped within it. They can't get out of it, and they're losing so much. They're losing their emotions. They've pretty much lost their humanity. And when you think about what happens with later Cybermen, so when we see them again for the first time in the modern series, Russell T Davies introduced the idea that they're all hiding a pain. They're all screaming inside. So they've got to have their logic chip. Now, again, so there's always a really nice ethical, moral argument to be had with the Cybermen. And okay, granted, if it happens in every single Cyberman story, it's going to be a little bit boring. But I do find it more interesting when we kind of delve into that side of things, or when that affects what the Cybermen do and their motivations for doing stuff, rather than let's just have them turn up to be shot at and provide loads of lovely explosions, right? So I think that's part of it as well. I'm not saying this is bad because of that. It's just, again, 16-year-old me would have loved to have seen a bit of that, and probably still would, though I care less about it now. Just show me Cybermen blowing up, right?
Yeah,
so
9-year-old
it's
me,
all fine.
Was quite happy with that because I didn't really know anything different. And overall, I really enjoyed this one again. And the plot's a bit of a mess, and relatively, but it's fun, and as is often the case with Who, and I'm not saying this one's bad at all, but I can kind of look past minor niggles, for the overall enjoyment I get, from something. So yeah, I liked this one a great deal. I was going to say something else. I've completely forgotten what it was now.
Is it on your notes?
No, about the model work. Yeah, you were saying there's no shadow and stuff, but it's quite, it's quite amazing really to look at what they were doing, bearing in mind the technical limitations, the budgetary limitations,
and the time limitations,
but what they were trying to do. And again, okay, fine, there's no shadow and the ship lands, but it looks cool and it's it's workable.
It looks cool now. I think. I think at the time I thought it looked a little bit shit, to be honest. And I think getting older and a bit wiser, I can appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
More the fact they pulled this off with no time, no money, very little expertise in probably in the technology they were using. A lot of this paint box stuff was quite new.
Yeah.
And they were doing all sorts of stuff with it. And had they more time, then they would have done stuff. So that the view of 16-year-old me is very different to the view of year old me.
Yeah.
So it's the things we pick up. But again, when you look at kids on social media and they're saying this stuff, it's the same kind of reactions, that I was having back then. So I can kind of see where a lot of the kids who sort of maybe pull modern episodes apart
you don't
are doing it
think
without.
That you could do better CGI or grade better than
see, now you're pulling into a whole different thing. So.
Yeah. Deadpool and Wolverine looks like garbage.
I know, so I could do better than that. No, and even now I don't have those skills. So hats off to the guys who pulled it off back in the day. So there's some other stuff going on in here then. So we mentioned a little bit of humour. There is this kind of this to and fro in between some pretty dark stuff. So we got Mud Dad in part one as that kind of the mathematician guy is wiped out. We've also got the sort of darkness that this comet arrives every sort of 25 years or so and is a kind of a harbinger of there's some sort of historical thing, assassination of Kennedy and World War II and all sorts of other things that go on when it kind of comes round within Earth's orbit. But there's also a fair bit of humour as well, and I think that's I could be wrong, but I think Kevin Clarke, who wrote this, was sort of looking at Jacobean literature as a kind of a model for this, because Jacobean stuff does this a lot. Will throw something really deep and heavy and then pull you back with some kind of slapstick. So talking about the skinheads and Lady Remington, and I love the fact with Lady Remington actually that she talks about this family member, an old ancestor of hers who was around in the 17th century, who met a sticky end, and Lady Penfort's like, yes, 'twas a slow poison that did for her. She's like, oh honey, you met my fancy there, someone who's been researching my family tree, and of course she was there, and I love that. It's a really rubbish joke, but it just so works. It's just so right. And another thing that got me within that same scene as well, I found myself saying it, is when Lady Painfort says it will be our destiny, we ride to our destiny, or something, it is our destiny, and the American and Lady Remington, she goes, it surely is, honey, it surely is. And I was saying that before she said it, so it's deep within my DNA,
you remember
that line, and I would never have come out with it. But at that point, when the prompt is, I just kind of that's what it is, which is a really weird thing. So I've obviously watched this a lot more than I thought I have over the last 30 odd years. So so there is all that. So here's another thing I just want to talk about as well, because I think this is quite interesting. So you mentioned earlier that this does seem to prefigure a lot of the modern series stuff, right? And now obviously this is the age when Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat and Chris and people like me and you and all loads of other people who are involved in modern day Doctor Who now, we're watching and getting the same kind of vibes from it. And when I was kind of thinking ahead to Day the Doctor in this, which is another story that features an ancient Time Lord weapon, which is manifested in Bad Wolf Rose. So, and I love this idea that the old Titan, it's all started within this bunch of stories that the weapons of the Time Lords, the Hand of Omega, and this thing, the Validium statue, or the organic, so the Validium was Gallifrey's last line of defense, right? It's a super weapon. It's a weapon of mass destruction, and it lives, it breathes, it has thoughts of its own. It's sentient, right? And again with Day the Doctor, right? The weapon that the Doctor uses or would have used to blow up Gallifrey and end everything, was again a sentient thing, right?
Yes.
A created weapon, but one that has its own. And when you think of the TARDISes as well, is there a kind of sentience within the TARDIS? That was something else that was kind of pushed through in the VNAs and the Eighth Doctor novels. The idea of the TARDIS being a living thing, and I love the idea that there's a whole bunch of Time Lord super weapons that were developed, created without any kind of morality or ethics, and it points to those old dark days of the again, sort of reference perhaps in the Five Doctors, with the whole game of Rassilon thing. And was Rassilon a good guy? Well, it depends what side you're on. You know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. And this is where all the brilliant sort of dark mythology of the Time Lords and everything sort of comes out. It's the wellspring for all of that. And I have to say, I do get off on it quite a lot.
Yeah,
it's a big deal for me. I love that shit, man. Honestly, I think it's great, right?
Yeah, I think
you with me? You with me?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
it's
you want me there?
It's not explained enough that it's.
But it opens the imagination, doesn't it? Because of that,
yeah.
Because it's not explained. You can well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. What else is there, kind of waiting to be uncovered?
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing that I think, if a bit like the Time War, when that was introduced. I haven't listened to the Eighth Doctor Time War stuff. I'm sure they're really good, but I could have lived with just. The Time War happen, and the Nightmare Child or whatever they called it, and all these kind of hints at kind of living weapon type things, that are very sort of Gallifreyan, and here with this stuff, and again the Timeless Child, I that's the sort of thing that for me, I don't the mystery.
You don't want to see it.
Yeah, I don't
like
think I need it, and it's good to sort of ponder. Well, so if I think that's the difference, it's thinking, I wonder what it could be, and or not even really that so much as, I don't know it all, but it doesn't need to be explained in the way some other stuff needs to be for it to work enough for me, because it's not, it's more of a character thing than a plot thing, I think, in some ways, and it.
I was listening to a Big Finish from years ago. I think it might have been Dark Eyes, the first box set.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, if it wasn't that, it was something else, probably around about that sort of time. I can't remember now, but I think it must have been Dark Eyes. Anyway, point is, there's Nick Briggs is talking about it afterwards, and they do the whole behind the scenes thing at the end of these box sets. So, and he says, because I think there's like a reference to the Time War in Dark Eyes in that first one, and Nick says, he goes, these words may come to bite me in the bum at some point, but we've got no intention of doing the Time War. I don't want to see it, like you just said there, it's the mystery of it. Let's leave it to the imagination, etc., etc. And now, of course, they've got like 3 million box sets across 14 different Doctors, probably, uncovering the mysteries of the Time War. So it most definitely has a bit more than And if we ever get him on his podcast, I'm going to ask him about that and tell him. You know what I mean?
That's something be fun. I hope they don't do with the 13th Doctor series, and they didn't do it with the 10th.
Go beyond the gateway.
Yeah, and she's fab.
It's probably going to happen at some point, though. It's like when you think of like the original Doctor Who setup, right? We had no idea what planet the Doctor was from, who they were, or anything, right? We didn't even know they could regenerate, and neither did the TV crew themselves until it got to a certain point. But then there comes a point, many, many years later in the middle of Tom Baker's run when suddenly all of that is explained, right? Oh, well, we'd had Time Lords at the end of the War Games, right? So it took 2 incarnations of the Doctor for us to meet the Doctor's own people. Another few years after that, to the end of the 3rd Doctor's reign, before we get to know what his planet's called. And then a few years after that in The Deadly Assassin, when we learn that the Doctor can only regenerate so many times, that there's houses, the Pridonians and the rest of them, I can't remember what they are. And you know, the whole setup of Gallifrey with the Eye of Harmony and the Keys of Rassilon. Then we get it again with the invasion. So it's all kind of explained, and then that's it. And then we get another mystery, this stuff with the other. And, you know, time, you know, something that happens in the dark days. Was the Doctor actually there? Was the Doctor more than a Time Lord? You know, all that sort of stuff. And
sort of, yeah.
Sort of, right? But then, of course, that sort of gets explained in Lungbarrow, and probably would have been explained in Ghostlight had the original story for that been greenlit. You know, it wasn't. So Ghostlight was what Lungbarrow was supposed. Lungbarrow was what Ghostlight was supposed to be. Right. Either way, it's a kind of a, you know, the same idea but done two different ways, and would have explained a lot more about that, except it didn't, because I think, and again we should have asked him about this when he was on it, you know, and I think Andrew wanted the mystery, and well, he said to us, didn't he, you know, he likes the mystery. He doesn't, he always said that you shouldn't explain the Doctor's origins, you know, point towards something but never explain it, never show it, which is pretty cool.
I think yeah, with Big Finish stuff, you know, I hope we don't sort of start getting any definitive answers about, you know, the fugitive and
but we might
Child.
Do. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I was getting to this. We might do 10 years from now. They might decide that actually, let's throw the Doctor back into the universe that they came from, get them behind that portal, and start looking at stories that happen, you know, on that side of the gate, so to speak.
And of course, I'll buy that. You know,
of course you will. You're gonna love it. I would as well. But by that time, hopefully, there's another set of mysteries that probably throw the Doctor into question yet again, right?
Something else,
and it'll carry on, and by which time I'll be, you know, I'll be a brain in a jar on Freya's mantelpiece, staring at my googly eyes. You know, that's my fate. So this has a big thumbs up from you in the end.
It's really good. Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. I realised that we didn't actually put anything out to ask people what they thought of the episode, so apologies, everyone. But do leave us
something in the comments
let's
right now.
Get some
comments. We need more YouTube comments.
Yeah. So let us know what you thought, and thanks for listening as always. And we'll be back next week with more exploration throughout the Whoniverse.
Was that? Yeah, that's my sign off tune. We should do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, let's not do that. Bye, y'all. See you next time. Bye.